Hi guys, it's Ray here from Man City Fan Chat. I hope you're all feeling great this morning. Well, I woke nice and early this morning to hear some more bitter comments from Señor Tebas, who's the La Liga president, and I was going to call him a bitter old fool, but he's only 6 years older than me. But the fool part, that sticks. The bitter part, that sticks as well. Now look, he's been having another pop, quite pretty much focused on the new clubs that have broken into the elite. That's Manchester City and PSG, simply because we've got financial clout. We've got money behind us, and we're a threat, and we've proven so to the old world order, especially La Liga's big two, Barcelona and Real Madrid, and La Liga in general as well, because their product, he feels, is less noteworthy, if that's the right word. You know, there's less marketing and publicity around it in times when I think the money coming into football, especially around Europe, is slowing down in terms of TV deals and things like that. I think outside Europe, I mean, we've seen with the Premier League, our TV deals slowing down, but outside the Premier League, the overseas rights, that's still going pretty strong, and I think we'll get an extra 12 or 13 million quid each year just from the overseas deal. And La Liga are scampering, looking for ways to make money, looking at ways to enhance their product, market their product, and go back to that status they had a few years ago where they were the best league in the world. I mean, I think it was, without really too much debate, a few years ago when the English teams were in the doldrums in Europe, you could say La Liga was the best. It was an exciting league. The big teams were, okay? That's where all the money was focused there. Now, so let's talk about City and PSG, okay, and the models very briefly. I want to talk about that, and then I want to go into Tebas's comments, Señor Tebas's comments, and then I want to address them, yeah, and see who's really distorting the market and whose financial might has caused trouble and imbalance around not only their own country, but around Europe as well. Now, we accept, there's no question about it, we accept City, both City and PSG got lucky. We both got lucky with our new owners a few years back. City's about 11 years ago. PSG's was a couple of years more recent than that. We got lucky with our owners who had deep pockets and were quite willing to flash the cash. You can call it a bit vulgar in the early days, but that was the only way to catch up. That was the only way to catch up to the elite. And some of the big clubs in Europe, they saw that coming. They saw these interlopers, these new boys, City and PSG, with a lot of money. And they were worried, and quite rightly so. They were worried that they wouldn't be able to compete with clubs with, in their terms, limitless sources of funds. You know, you had the Italian clubs like owned by, I think Milan, owned by Silvio Berlusconi. What a lovely guy he is. Complaining that, you know, look, we can't afford to spend any more money, we're losing money, or we can't afford to compete with others, we need a stop to this. And a push from, you could argue the G14 clubs or the G12, whatever it was, the big clubs around Europe, your Barcelonas, your Real Madrids, and some clubs in England like Man United and Liverpool and others, and Everton, I think possibly were advocates of this as well, but I'm not too sure about the Everton, but certainly people like Arsenal, Milan and Inter, I think, and Juventus and other clubs, and you Bayern Munich. So, the old guard of big clubs, okay, who'd been used to having the money with them. They were used to having the big funds. They were used to having not a lot of competition in their own leagues, really, and in Europe in general, especially with the advent of the Champions League. I mean, the Champions League was kind of started to stop the threat of a European breakaway Super League. FFP was in there to stop clubs like Man City and PSG getting a foothold. We were just in time before the door was slammed shut. We got our foot in just in time, and it was kind of to stop other clubs. Look at Wolves now. You know, Wolves have got big, rich Chinese owners, I think, Fosun. Now, they could spend a lot more money if they wanted to, if FFP would allow them. And they would be able to possibly break in and challenge other clubs as well, challenge the status quo. And all, you know, the old clubs are interested in is money, status, prestige, and power. the thing about City is we've mostly moved away from that model. Yes, occasionally we'll spend big. In the early days, we had to spend big. Let's be honest. You know, we had to attract players, and who would come to City's project if it wasn't for a few extra quid? Let's be honest about it. You know, would we have signed the likes of Yaya Toure, David Silva, Sergio Aguero, Carlos Tevez, especially if it wasn't for the money? So we don't hide behind that. We say we were lucky, we won the lottery, and we had to do what it took to try and catch up quickly before that door was slammed in our faces. We had to, you know, get our team from, I think we were 10th before the takeover. We had to get up into the Champions League. It took 2 or 3 seasons before we did that, but we had to do it. We simply had to do it to catch up. And as I said, we make no bones about that. Now, PSG carried on, I think. They carried on because they've not got the right strategy and structure. They had a big boost at the start, got some big players in, started to get deep into the Champions League, obviously winning their own league a canter. But in the last 2 or 3 seasons, their strategy hasn't worked. You know, just throwing money at projects isn't a guarantee. It's not a recipe for success. So you've got, you know, Senior Tebas has been at it before. He's done it several times. We've made comments about it in the past. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go through some of his comments briefly, and then talk about them in general, and then move on and look at where the big money transfers really take place. The problem of teams like PSG and Manchester City is the big problem of European football. Why? Because they have companies backing them that don't care if they lose money. That's what he told Marca, paper in Spain. The other big clubs like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich try to compete so that their best players don't leave. That's why ideas like the European Super League come in, which would be a big mistake, and other proposals that would end up harming the football industry in general. Then these state clubs, or those backed by some multimillionaire, are the biggest danger to European football. Tebas is also unhappy that he doesn't believe UEFA and possibly FIFA, their push hasn't been strong enough and more needs to be done to limit the big team's income. And he talks about clubs that had problems, and in one of the old big boys was AC Milan, and they've been bad from Europe. But he wants to compare them to PSG in particular about the sanctions imposed upon them. You only have to look at an example. AC Milan have been thrown out of European competitions, and PSG haven't. The secondary board of economic control at UEFA said that it's had to revise PSG's sanction. PSG went over this decision, that's to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and UEFA seemed to have done everything possible to stop investigating. As for Manchester City, the things that they've done have been talked about, but we don't know anything. There must be some change in the governing system of European and world football, because football, apart from being a sport, is also an industry. Well, you know, strong words from Mr. Tebas again. And if you didn't, you know, if you took them at face value, you think, wow, you know, these clubs, these PSGs and Man City, they're getting away with murder. You know, he puts us out as real bad clubs and bad people who run them and own them, and it's all wrong. And look, I understand where he's coming from in the terms that he's got to do the best for La Liga. That's his job as La Liga president. He's got to do the best for them and market them and get as much money as possible in terms of domestic TV rights, overseas TV rights, and other sponsorship opportunities. And for that, I don't blame him, but it's the way he's doing it. He's doing it in a very dirty and underhand and sordid and vulgar kind of way. Yeah. What I always say, and I say to my kids, and what I want to see in sport, be better than your opponent. Make sure you're better. Don't glorify in the fact that you've got a weak opponent and you've beaten them, or that they're poor, or don't attack other people. Don't drag them back. Don't try and sully their name just to get yourself ahead. Do it on yourself. Do it on your own name, your own principles, your own beliefs, your own abilities. Market La Liga for what it is. Don't try and tarnish Manchester City. Don't try and tarnish other clubs that are not even in your league. Why are you talking about other leagues? I mean, I think it's just over the top. Now, I'm going to go through some of his points. I'll have a quick look at my notes from time to time to go through his points. Now, he talks about the European Super League. Okay, now I think that's a veiled threat to UEFA. He's basically saying, UEFA, you've got to do something. If you don't do something, maybe we'll go back to this idea of the European Super League. Now, if some of the big clubs in Europe go down the route of the European Super League, what happens to UEFA? Yeah, because let's be quite honest, the big clubs still have a lot of clout, and if they walked away from UEFA, what would UEFA be able to do? Yeah, they've got most of the top players in the world, and if you take, for argument's sake, Juventus, Bayern Munich, Dortmund, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man United, Man City, Arsenal, Spurs, just to start with, you take those clubs and PSG, if they formed a Super League, yeah, they might kick City, they might not want City and PSG in there, but if they formed a Super League, what could UEFA do about it? What could FIFA? What could anybody do about it? Because these clubs have got the might. They've got, as I said, the best players in the world playing for them, and people will want to watch, and you'll get sponsors involved. And I don't think it would be popular for that long if there was no relegation and promotion and that kind of thing. Then it would become boring, and it would become expensive for fans to go and watch and follow, and it would become boring if you're playing the same team again and again and again. You know, we see that with the Champions League when you play the same team, 2 or 3 seasons out of 5, it can become a bit staid and boring, playing Bayern Munich on a regular basis. But so the threat is there, that veiled threat to UEFA. If you don't do something, we might, yeah. And that was how one of the reasons as I said, the Champions League came into existence, because of this. They wanted more money, and the threat of the Super League, the old big clubs, the cartel, and the FFP was one of the things that came in as well as another threat. And these big clubs wanted something to be done about these upstarts like City and PSG, and to stop any others, coming along and pushing them further down the ladder. So I just think he's talking about these people making mistakes. I think he's also unhappy with FIFA because when the Spanish clubs got transfer bans, I think for problems with the signing underage players, City didn't. That's probably got a sting, yeah. But we've not been as guilty, let's say, as other clubs. Even in this country, Chelsea guilty of I think 29 offences. City were guilty of 2, I think. And we pled guilty. Chelsea denied it. And I think Real Madrid had a transfer ban. Was it Barcelona as well? So lots of clubs have had transfer bans. But I think Real Madrid was it over 100 cases they were investigated for? It's a totally different ball game, yeah. So it's probably that stings, that hurts. And I just also believe that Tebas, he isn't happy with FFP now. Okay, because look at that comment about AC Milan. He's happy to now throw AC Milan under the bus or trample all over them. 5 or 6 years ago he wouldn't, because they were still a big club, and whatever 10 years ago, still a big club with a lot of stature, with a lot of clout, a lot of money still. Now it's changed quite considerably, and so he's happy to say that they've been kicked out of European competition. Why haven't PSG? PSG got off on a technicality, and is he trying to say that UEFA have done something behind the scenes to help PSG get off? I don't know. But as I said, I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to do the best for his league. That's his job. Yeah, he wants the Liga to be back to number 1. He wants it to have and to be the number 1 league in in Europe or in the world. You've got to get the better players. You've got to have the best players there. He's seen Neymar leave to go to PSG. He's seen the force of City now, and yes, leagues around Europe and clubs around Europe are worried that City will get stronger and stronger and stronger. Like Liverpool are getting stronger, but City are there. It's just we haven't won the European competitions, but we're dominating. We have done at least for the last 2 seasons in England. And if we can start dominating in Europe as well, then that pushes La Liga further down. Yeah, look what happened last season. You had Chelsea versus Arsenal in the Europa League final, and Liverpool versus Spurs in the Champions League final. So which league is going to be more talked about as being a strong league currently? The Premier League. And that, those 4 finalists didn't include the best team in all the land and all the world. That's Man City. Well, at least the best team domestically. So yes, Tebas is worried and concerned about all that. But look, as I said, it's all about money. You go back to La Liga and look at how they distribute their money in La Liga, and the bulk of it goes to two clubs, Real Madrid and Barcelona. There's no equitable sharing of the spoils there, so to speak. At least in the Premier League, we give every team a base level, which is going to be around £100 million, a little bit more. Yeah, and then you get money for however many times you appear on TV, on live TV. That bumps your money up, and then you get some money for prize money as well. So each club is still getting a huge chunk of money, and I think in Spain it's kind of mostly funneled towards the big two, which is Barcelona and Real Madrid. And he's talked about, you know, the financial power of PSG and Man City. I'm not going to talk about PSG. That's not our club. I'm going to talk about Man City. I'm going to talk about some of the transfers, okay, and compare what we spend to what other clubs spend. Now, you can't question in the last 10, 11 years, we've spent a heck of a lot of money on transfers. I'm not going to deny that. Okay, I've said it already. One of the reasons was to push ourselves through that trapdoor and, you know, give us that boost, yeah, to try and catch up to the elite around Europe, and then to try and compete with them. But once we've got there, we slowed down. You look at last summer, we bought basically Riyad Mahrez. That was it, 60 million quid, because we had pretty much everything we needed. Yes, the summer before, we spent a hell of a lot of money, and we got Laporte in January. So, yes, we bought Walker, a lot of money. Yes, we bought Mendy, a heck of a lot of money. Yes, we bought Bernardo Silva. Yes, we bought a couple of other players for big fees, yeah? You know, as I said, we got Laporte as well. Yes, we'd got, I think, Stones the season before. We spent a lot of money to get to where we were. But last summer, we only needed Mahrez, really. This summer, we needed to replace Fernandinho. We got Rodri, we got Cancelo. It's about 122 million quid. We bought Angelino as well. That takes us up to about 130 million quid spent. Is that a lot? Well, yeah, it sounds like a lot. But I don't think it's too much. And what I want to do, briefly, is go through some of the big deals, okay, that some clubs have done, especially Real Madrid and Barcelona. And I'll also bring in Juventus. Now, what señor Tebas does, he criticises the new upstarts, the new people to the party at the high table. That's PSG and City. And he doesn't generally criticise, that I've seen, other big clubs around Europe, the old guard, because he's in with them. Yeah, you know, they're in with them. They're all in it together. So let's look at quickly at Real Madrid. We talked some of these before, but I'll go quickly through some numbers. When they bought Bale for about 90 million quid, okay, that was in 2013. They bought Hazard this year, another 90 million quid. They bought Ronaldo in 2009, 80 million pounds. Yes, he's a fantastic talent, but that was in 2009. That was 10 years ago. They spent 80 million pounds on Ronaldo. That same summer, they bought Kaká for 60 million quid. That's a hell of a lot of money. You know, it's more than we're spending now, 10 years later. Zidane, 2001, that's 18 years ago. Zidane, 65 million. James Rodriguez, 65 million 5 years ago. Yeah, they just got Jovic. And Figo, 18 years ago, in 2001, 54 million. And in fact, in 2001, if I'm right, they got Zidane and Figo for about 120 million pounds. 120 million pounds back in 2001. And yes, extrapolating for inflation, normal inflation, and the transfer inflation, what would those figures be now? Yeah, what would Zidane at 65? He's got to be 300 million quid these days. Figo at 54, he'd have been 250. So you've got to put it into context. Look at these massive numbers. Who's distorting the market? Who's spending shed loads? Look at Barcelona 2 years ago. Okay, this is the one that blows all the crap he says out of the water. Coutinho, at least 130 million quid 2 years ago. Okay, top player, he wasn't even a top player. Okay, Ousmane Dembele from Dortmund 2 years ago, 112 million quid. What are those guys doing now? Dembele's not doing that much, and Coutinho's on loan at Bayern Munich now. They're spending shed loads. Neymar, yeah, with all the skullduggery that appeared to go on in that transfer and backhanders and money that's been siphoned off and lost, I think that came in at 80 million quid. That was 6 years ago. 80 million quid. Remember, our record's only 62 million quid. Suarez. Yeah? Mr. Red Teeth. Suarez. 75 million quid in 2014. That's 5 years ago. And now this summer, they got Frenkie de Jong for 65 million quid. That's this year. Go back 10 years, they got Ibrahimovic for 60 million quid. That's around our record. And they're spending it 10 years ago. Who's distorting the market? Who's setting transfer fees and levels that no one can compete with? Who's getting the best players or best young players in the world at exorbitant prices? Happening in Real Madrid and Barcelona. Look at Juventus, what they're doing in more recent times. Last season, they got Ronaldo, about 105 million. Only 105 million. They got Higuain, 81 million. That was 3 years ago. Also, this summer, they got Matthijs de Ligt, about 75 to 77 million quid. You want to go back a bit? Go back to 2001 when they got Gigi Buffon, the goalkeeper, from Parma, I think it was. 48 million quid for a goalkeeper in 2001. We paid about 36 million quid for Edison a couple of years ago. You know, they bought, I think in 2001, they spent a lot of money. I'm just looking at some of their numbers. In 2001, Juventus went out big time. Let's have a look. Buffon, 48 million. Lilium Thuram, 37 million. That's 85. Pavel Nedved in 2001, 35 million. And they got Marcelo Salas from, I think, Lazio, 22 million quid. Now, you add those up, that's 85, 95, 100, 120, over 140 million quid in 2001. And they're having a pop at us. And what we spend in this, they're spending more in 2001, 18 years ago, at Juventus than we spent this summer. You go back to what Barcelona spent 2 years ago on Coutinho and Dembele, and that's more than we've spent in the last 2 summers combined. So it's not just, it's not City. You can look at United and what they spent on Pogba and Lukaku and Harry Maguire and other players as well. Angel Di Maria and other stuff. And what they're paying in wages. Look, Bailey's rumoured to be on 30 million euros or 30 million quid a season. Okay? Hazard's on, I have no idea what Hazard's on. He'll be on at least 20, 25 million a year. I don't know what some of the Barca players on, but some of the numbers you get, you've got from footy leaks and stuff, it's ridiculous. City players, when Leroy Sané came to City, he was on 60 grand a week. 60 grand a week, yeah? 3 million a year. Our top players, someone like KDB, I believe he's on about 250 a week, something in that region, with bonuses and whatever, it might come to 300,000 a week, which is about 50 million a year. But you've got players like Bale on 30 million. You've got other players like Ronaldo on whatever, 30, 40 million. Same with Messi. So you've got players on huge sums. And look what City are doing. We've walked away from deals because of money. We've said it's too much. Can we afford it? Absolutely we can afford it, okay? We're making profits. We're comfortably in profit. We're comfortable with FFP. We're really in a good situation. Now, we walk away from people like Matthijs de Ligt. You got to remember his wages would be 15 to 20 million on top of his transfer fee of about 77 and an agent's fee as well. We walked away from Harry Maguire. Another 80, 85 million pound transfer, agent's fees on top of that. Massive wages. We walked away from Fred, Jorginho, Sanchez. We walked away from Sanchez. United are happily, well, not happily now, paying him 20 odd million quid a year to do very, very little. Yeah? So we walk away from deals because the money is not right. We're thinking the players are not coming for the right reasons. The money's wrong. Liverpool spent 400 million in fact, since Klopp's been here, they spent a lot more than 400. But in about 18 months, Liverpool spent 300 million pounds on transfers and agents' fees. That included Alisson Becker. That included Virgil van Dijk. That includes Naby Keita, Fabinho, whoever else they bought in that 18-month period. They didn't buy anybody this summer because they had 2 problems. One, it's hard to get quality players now to come to Liverpool. That'll push for the first team because they've got a very good first team. Just not denying that. And secondly, they might be a bit pumped out for cash at the moment. You know, they spent a lot of money in a short space of time. And FFP is going to be an issue. But Señor Tebas doesn't talk about all these other clubs. He doesn't talk about the other big boys who are spending shed loads, distorting markets. Look, Our record for a goal is 36, is it 36 million? The record at Liverpool is 65, 66, Chelsea 70. Our defending record is about 55, 56 million. United have just spent 80, 85 million. Striker, most expensive striker we've got, Sergio Aguero, 38 million was it? Yeah, you can see Ronaldo going for over 100 million. Wingers like Bale going for 90. So it's not City decides to market. And the last thing I'm going to say, I'm just going to read some stuff. You can say take Wikipedia with a pinch of salt. I'm just going to read a little bit about Señor Tebas, the man who's having a pop at City. Okay? Shortly after Tebas' appointment as La Liga president, former Spanish coach Javier Clemente compared Tebas to a Nazi concentration camp boss due to his affiliation with the right-wing Youth New Force in the 1980s. During his tenure, Tebas had said that Spanish league matches could be held outside of Spain. Oh, come on. Although he said the El Clásico will only be held in Spain, how can you take games outside your country? What about your own fans? It's purely for money. And he's also said that if the Catalonia region becomes independent from Spain, then its football teams, including Barcelona and Espanyol, would not be allowed to compete in the Spanish football leagues. In January 2019, he announced his support for the far-right nationalist Vox Party, saying, "They seem good to me." Tebas said on Cadena Cope, "I've been saying it for a while. Spain needed an alternative like Vox. You have to respect the 400,000 people that voted for them in Andalusia. If they stay on this line, then I will vote for Vox." As I said, what a lovely guy. Guys, bit of a long one today, but hopefully some useful information, and you can throw it back at fans of other clubs who have a pop at City about distorting the market, spending too much money. I've given you 3 examples of Real Madrid, Juventus, and Barcelona in detail, and you can also include Man United in that, and Liverpool as well. Who's distorting the market? It's certainly not City. It's certainly not City. PSG, yes, but not City, guys. Guys, if you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, please, it would be really wonderful if you could do so. Help us to get to our target of 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible. We're not far off, just over 100 subscribers away. You could help to make the difference, and make sure you hit that bell icon, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you're notified as soon as new videos come out. Next week on the 7th of September is the Manchester derby between the women's teams, City ladies against United ladies. We'll be very much involved with that. We'll have a team of new presenters involved with that. So, please hit that bell icon, get notified as we put in stuff out covering the men's team and the women's team. Anybody else doing that at City? Don't think so. So, comment in the sections below what you want to see. I'm always asking this. What do you want to see from our channel? We're there already doing men's teams, women's teams. We're doing previews of games with other fan channels, with opposition fan channels. I've been to all the games this season. Away at West Ham, away at Bournemouth on Sunday, and we always preview them with opposition fan channels and opposition fans. You get daily interviews, reviews like this, and videos, and daily live streams, fan cams after games, fan cams before games, reports after games. We do a Premier League review normally on a Monday with Bernard Deneen. Loads of stuff, guys. I was talking, and I do podcasts as well. I was talking to Mike Long from the Blue podcast yesterday, and he says, "I don't understand how you do so much. You've got an unbelievable work ethic. You're up early doors." Yeah, I'm up 4:30, 5 o'clock this morning, and you go into bed 1 o'clock in the morning, and you put so much content out there for City fans, and it's all free. I said, yeah, it is. You got to love what you do, and I love doing this for you guys, and I love your comments. You guys give me the extra motivation to get up at 4:30 on a Sunday morning and leg it down to Bournemouth and get back home at half 10 at night, at 11:15 at night. You guys help to give me that motivation, and my love for Man City helps to give me that motivation too. See you around, Blues.